That's what we do.
That's right. Yeah, my kid has not been sleeping very well, but I still love him. I love him. So like this card had tied the record for most decisions on a night, but I still
Hmm.
had a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I like the comparison there. Yeah, the UFC lets you down sometimes, but we still love it. We keep coming back for more.
That's right. And even though the main event of the evening between Rafael dos Anjos, the former lightweight champion, and Leon Rocky Edwards went the 5 round distance, with Leon Edwards coming away with the unanimous decision win and then was able to call out to Jorge Gamebred Masvidal in his post-fight interview. It wasn't full of ebbs or flows, but it was a very highly technical, high level of mixed martial arts put on display tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I thought Edwards had the perfect game plan in this fight. I definitely scored the second round for RDA, and I know two of the judges did as well. So at least two of them got something right uh, this evening, where as the rest of the night, it seemed like they were just kind of flipping a coin. But yeah, Edwards had a great game plan. I felt like the game bread call out was a little weak. If he was going to do it, I think he should have gone for broke and I forget what he even said. That's how weak it was. And I just watched it 5 minutes ago. So I don't really see that fight coming together. But it's a good solid win for Edwards as far as his record, but it's definitely one that's not going to be memorable to a lot of the fans, in my opinion.
Well, that might be the thing that holds Leon Edwards back from. He called out Jorge Masvidal or a title shot, and he's like, you know what? I want Jorge Masvidal, but if they decide to give me a title shot instead, I'll take that. Like,
Yeah.
it was pretty weak. He just kept calling Jorge. I want that little weasel.
Oh, that's what he was saying. Yeah.
He said, I want that little weasel. And he said at the beginning, and then at the end of his post-fight interview, John Anik was like, okay, here's your time. Call out what you want. And he's like, either the little weasel or maybe I'll take the title shot. But my point is, a lot of his resume, he's on an 8-fight win streak, one of the longest currently active in the welterweight division. And a lot of his fights just, for some reason, they don't stand out in my mind that well.
Yeah. I mean, he had that. His first really notable win was that decision over Cowboy, which was one of those fights that really could have gone either way. And if I remember correct, he had the home field advantage in that one. And then the win over Gunnar Nelson was completely overshadowed by his backstage brawl with Masvidal. So he kind of keeps shooting himself in the foot time after time when he gets in there. I think the smart call out for him would have been Tyron Woodley, because that would be the quickest path to a title shot if he gets in there and he's able to even, get a snoozer decision over Woodley. I think you got to put him in there for the title shot. But with this performance and this call out, I think he probably earned himself the loser of Colby Covington and Robbie Lawler. That's the way I see it going down. I doubt they'll give him Masvidal just because Masvidal's stock is so high right now, and Edwards, you know, by his own doing, is just kind of flying under the radar despite really good performances.
Yeah, like this week, Masvidal's manager came out and said that he will only take one of two fights. Well, he'll take two fights, either a title shot against Kamaru Marty, the Nigerian Nightmare Usman, or Conor McGregor. I mean, who wouldn't take a fight against Conor McGregor? That's the biggest money on the table. Perhaps, I don't know how it's going to be in the era of the UFC on ESPN Plus pay-per-view system, but nonetheless, of course, anybody would take a fight with Conor McGregor, despite thinking that it will actually happen because Masvidal has basically said he doesn't want it. He's already given Edwards his three-piece with a soda. Do you want to see that fight? Not will it happen, but do you want to see that bout?
No, just because of how weak the call out was. Give me that little weasel. I mean, you had to remind me of what the line even was. I just don't feel like there's any buildup, and Masvidal shot it down when he was like, "I'm already 1-0 against that guy." You could kind of build the storyline if the UFC were willing to participate and help promote that along, but I don't think they're going to be. I think they're just going to kind of put Edwards on the shelf. They're going to let the welterweight division shuffle out over the next couple of months, and then they're going to make a match with him. He didn't really put himself in a position where people really want to see him again. Is the problem, even though he had a really impressive win over a former champion. And that's just the way I saw it. Maybe it's just me.
Well, yeah, let's talk about like how he got this impressive win over Rafael dos Anjos. It was
Hmm.
interesting, like when the fighters are walking to the cage and Bruce Buffer's doing his thing. Dominic Cruz is kind of mentioning how it's a striker versus a grappler matchup. He thought the grappler was Rafael dos Anjos, and then very early on in round number one, Edwards goes in and he gets the takedown, secures it, and then works from three-quarter mount butterfly guard into the half guard and is working on some ground and pound against Rafael dos Anjos. And he also landed a bunch of those slapping elbows um, that made that huge cut happen over the eye of Rafael dos Anjos. He was doing a lot of great things in this fight, and I think that he's actually really coachable. Maybe it wasn't the most exciting fight or the most exciting call out, but technically very impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because Dos Santos gets billed as a grappler a lot, but you really have to consider the kind of grappler he is and the way he's been beaten in the past because the blueprint is definitely out there. So he comes from a Gracie Baja lineage of jiu-jitsu, which is a very top pressure and strong guard oriented form of jiu-jitsu. Basically, their belief is don't let anybody pass your guard. But if somebody passes their guard, um, the game kind of weakens a little bit after that. Not to say he's not world class on the ground. Obviously, he was a world champion as a purple belt, and I think he was like a bronze medalist as a black belt a couple of times. But it's because of that top pressure style of jiu-jitsu. So if he gets on top of you, it's a problem. But as we've seen in the past, he's had problems with wrestlers who get on top of him and hold him down and are able, once they get past his guard, he has a hard time getting back up, especially with the bigger guys in this division. But yeah, he definitely looked great. My favorite part of the fight though was RDA coming out to the Bloodsport theme song. I thought that was a good move. It went well with his mustache too.
I didn't catch that. I thought maybe the cops team would have fit well, but that is pretty dope.
Yeah, that would have done it too.
That his mustache really caught a lot of attention this week. It's a powerful mustache though.
Yeah, it looks good on him. I'm not usually a fan of mustaches. I gotta say, there are very few people who wear them well. Like Tom Selleck is up
Mm-hmm,
there,
mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Hulk Hogan, and the list kind of falls short after that. But RDA looking pretty powerful with the mustache. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get his hands raised with it.
Uh, a live chat commenter here, Gareth McWaters. Thank you for being here, Gareth. He says the RDA comes out to fight to survive every time.
Oh, does he? Maybe it was just the first time I noticed it because of the mustache. He had the 80s look, and then I'm like, oh yeah, Bloodsport. Like this is gonna be his night. But yeah, I guess I'm just oblivious to it. I listen to the fights, admittedly, with the volume off a lot of the time. So maybe that's why I didn't pick up on it before. But I think it was just that mustache. It really brought the music to my attention.
Well, sometimes on the broadcast they don't show us or let us listen to the walkout, so
Hmm.
that could be one of the problems as well. Um, let's talk.
Yeah, that used to be a thing. Oh, sorry,
No,
Brian. That used to be a thing back in the day. Remember when you would get the UFC DVDs and they would overdub the walkout music because they didn't have the rights to it?
I've never got the
Uh,
DVDs, but they do that on Fight Pass. Like you can tell that the person's like rapping along with their walkout song, but it's playing "Face the Pain." Like, I don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
I don't think that's what it is.
That's what they used to do. I used to rent the fights from Blockbuster back in the day. Dating myself a little bit, but when you rent the DVDs, they didn't have the rights to the music, so they have to overdub them with some like generic music track, some kind of rights free um, thing.
Th-
But anyway,
that
sorry
reminds
I
me
cut
of
you
a
off there.
no, that's fine. That reminds me of a dad joke. So the dad theme here. There was a meme I saw on Facebook that was like, "How old are you?" And like the answer was, "I once was on hold on my landline tied to the wall with Blockbuster about a late rental."
Yeah, I mean, I've been there, and the reason we're doing this tonight is because it's an ESPN card and they're on earlier, and I'm on the East Coast, so as a father, I know I don't have as bad as the people as in the UK, but I have a hard time staying awake when these cards are over with, especially if I'm sipping on some adult beverages while I'm watching them.
Yeah, or you had a card that drug on a long time like this one did. I mean, the prelims took so long, the main card had to start a half hour late. I don't know if that's ever happened, but
Mm.
the UFC on ESPN not off to a great start.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. They've had a couple of hiccups, and it really was a great signing for the sport in general that the UFC got on there, and then the PFL followed suit, and they were able to get on ESPN Plus as well. So it really is pushing the sport forward, but it's unfortunate that we've had like some slow cards. But at least we did have that one jolt in the co-main event. If you want to jump ahead to that, if you're ready to go into that, I hope I'm not
No,
skipping
that
ahead too
sounds
far here.
that perfect transition, Bill. Perfect transition. Just take over. But so co-main event of the evening, Walt Harris sent Alexei Oleinik down to the canvas in 12 seconds. He threw a jump knee, caught him in the armpit, left straight on the temple, slept him. He had one follow-up left hand shot, ground and pound strike to really seal the deal. But I think Alexei was asleep on his way to the canvas, so much so that he looked like he might have broke his ankle. But very impressive performance from the big ticket.
Yeah, man, Walt Harris looks really good here. If you're a wrestler in the UFC, uh, you gotta really worry about changing levels now because these guys are coming in with game plans. They're waiting for you to tilt that head down, which is what Walt Harris said the game plan was. But I don't think that was really the case with Alexei Olenek here. I think he just had a really high guard, which he tends to do. He keeps his hands really tight, and so he can close the distance and get in and grab a hold of you with those giant hands of his. And then Walt Harris did the right thing. His hands were up tight, so he went in from the bottom. And with any wrestler, when they get hit, their hands tend to come down because it's just an instinct to try and grab onto somebody. And Walt Harris came in with that left straight, and it was all over from there. Tied for the third fastest knockout in heavyweight history, I think they said.
Yeah, super fast. And it was crazy because we won't mention right now the fight that happened before that, but we had two heavyweight fights toward the end of this card that lasted a total of 57 seconds.
Yeah.
Less than a minute, two fights after that long slog. It was a crazy finish. I was kind of sad for Alexei Oleinik. He's an elder statesman in the sport. It sucked to see him perhaps break his ankle that way. But on the positive side, Walt Harris is maybe coming into his own. Perhaps could in the heavyweight division. There's a very short road to a title shot. If he perhaps just fought somebody pretty high ranked next, he could be on his way to a title shot or at least being in that picture.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit it's been a little bit tied up at the top for a while now. And hopefully he gets like a quick turnaround on this because he had a quick night tonight. Because he would have had four in a row if it wasn't for that little spat with USADA where he had the tainted supplement or whatever it was after his fight with Arlovsky. If he had that four in a row, he would definitely have a stronger case. But I think a quick turnaround, maybe get in there with somebody who's willing to stand up with him. Or at this point, he's so hot right now, I don't think it even matters if they're willing to stand up with him. Just get him in there with somebody that another warm body by the end of the year, and I think he'll be on his way for sure.
Yeah, another warm body. I like that. Well, you talked about how Leon Edwards was a little bit lackluster in his post-fight interview. He could have had a better call out of Jorge Masvidal. I thought Walt Harris was a little bit lackluster in his post-fight interview as well. I mean, that was fantastic, an amazing highlight reel knockout that's going to be on his tape when they're hyping him up for a fight for a long time. And then in the post-fight, they're like, hey, what do you want next? He's like, I don't know, man. I want to go to Abu Dhabi. Yeah, take me to Abu Dhabi. Like, he had a lot of enthusiasm about his win and about going to Abu Dhabi. If he'd have just maybe used that freckle to say somebody's name. I'd like have your coach hand you the list of heavyweights and be like, you know what? Blagoy you can get it in Abu Dhabi. And
Yeah, that would actually be a good fight. I think that would be a good matchup for him. But the difference with the Edwards thing is, he had the explosive finish. He had the highlight reel finish, like you said. It's got to be one or the other to help propel you forward. Edwards looked great. It was a technical performance, but as far as getting people to open their wallets for a pay-per-view, it's going to be a tough sell. Somebody putting together a highlight reel of that fight is going to have to go back, like, where was that elbow where he cut him? And they're going to have to watch that video for, 15 hours and cut up a highlight reel for him. Whereas Walt Harris, they'll just cut it and say, all right, we're done here. And they can promote his next fight easily.
Yeah, I love when the truck's just like, let's replay the entire fight. Bing. Awesome.
Yeah.
And if it were to happen, if there were still Fight Pass prelims, if it were down there, they'd play it later on when there was a quick finish, which we didn't have tonight.
Mhm.
So, yeah, Walt Harris, he's coming into his own. Perhaps he's very big, strong, fast, athletic dude. His fight IQ isn't all there. He had that disqualification. I can't remember who it was against, but he got disqualified for hitting after the bell. I'll look it up.
That was Mark Godbeer.
Yeah, so that was in November 4th of 2017. So my point is he lacks a little bit of fight IQ. He's still kind of green in that sense of it. And so the fight against Blagoy Ivanov, Blagoy is not very athletic. He's a very unassuming looking human being, but he's a veteran. He's got pretty darn high fight IQ. So that would be a fun matchup in that sense. It's not striker versus grappler, but like fight IQ versus not so much.
Yeah, it would definitely be a good test for him, especially since we know Ivanov can take a shot. I mean, he stood in there with Rothwell for the distance. A lot of people thought Rothwell won that fight. I was pretty indifferent after it. It could have gone either way, really, depending how you score it. But yeah, I think it would definitely be a great test for Walt Harris to get in there with Ivanov. I think we just made the match here, Brian. I think it just needs to happen now.
Yeah, I got Sean Shelby on speed dial. I'll call him right after this, and if he says no, I'm like, well, we're not going to be friends anymore there, Sean.
He should be listening live and then just make it happen.
A good friend would.
Yeah, right?
Well, let's move on to, first of all, the MMA on the Rocks podcast. You often talk about what alcoholic beverage you would pair with an event, right? Or you make drinks on your YouTube channel. What did you have paired with tonight?
So tonight I was drinking some craft beers. Recently took a trip up to North Carolina, so I've been kind of hooked on the Asheville area breweries. I was drinking some IPAs from a brewery called Green Man. It's one of the more widely available breweries from there, but still kind of a local, best kept secret. Luckily, I'm able to find it at a local liquor store here in Florida. So I was sipping on some of those, and for the podcast right now, I'm sipping on some Weller Special Reserve bourbon. It's a wheated bourbon. Not the highest end thing, but it is a pretty rare find, and amongst whiskey aficionados, I guess it's pretty highly regarded, even though fairly cheap bottle.
I'll have to give it a try sometime. I like the glass. I'm not familiar with liquor. I'm just a beer guy, but
Yeah, well, a lot of things that are popular with the breweries is making like cocktail flavored beers and aging in bourbon barrels and stuff like that. So as a brewer yourself, you might want to jump on some of those trends, and the best way to do that is start sipping on some bourbon, Brian.
Thunderhead Brewing in Kearney, Nebraska has 3 bourbon barrel-aged beers. There's a Yes Deer, which is a braggot. It's like a honey mead mixed with beer. It's a half and half barrel-aged. There's a Imperial Stout and also an IPA, a double IPA, but it turns into a barley wine when it ages because the hop character goes away after time. But yeah, I just don't know about liquor itself. I will learn from you, my friend.
Yeah. Let's do it, man. I gotta have you on my show, and then we'll talk some liquor. I'll give you a little homework, some things you gotta taste, and then we'll talk some tasting notes, and then we'll get into some hard liquor.
Alcoholic homework. I like the sound of that. Before I let you go, let's talk about a WTF of the card. I try not to cuss on this program because I get a lot of comments that are like, "Hey, man, I wish you wouldn't cuss." I try to watch the show on my TV while my children are around, so. Just WTF, don't actually say it out loud, the whole thing. But what would you say was your what the F moment on this card, beyond just the fact that it tied the record for most decisions on an event? Or you can do that if you'd like.
I would say some of the decisions themselves, like Alex Hernandez getting the win over Francisco Trinaldo, when he was just basically running around, not doing much of anything, but I can already talk myself through why that happened, in that he was fighting in his hometown.
Yeah.
And, the crowd was cheering for him. He was moving a lot, which made it look like he was doing something, but he wasn't really moving with purpose. And I'll give you a double if that's okay with you, Brian. The second is Andrei Arlovsky's boxing, which I thought was looking crisp as heck.
Yeah.
I had to hold my had to hold myself back a little bit. I don't have the same rule on my show, but yeah, Arlovsky's hands were looking so fast and just stifling Ben Rothwell in there. He stunned him with that jab so many times, kept him at distance, and then the way he followed up with his combinations was just beautiful. We saw like an Arlovsky of old. So I would say those are the two WTF moments, and it wasn't like a bad one, the second one, but I guess the first one's a bad one for Trinaldo.
No, I like it. The positive WTF of the card that you got to throw those out every once in a while because people will just feel like you're a curmudgeon if you don't.
Yeah, man. I'm all about the positivity.
But Arlovsky even throwing out some hook kicks. He looked fast. He was very diverse tonight. His chin held up against some of the big strikes that Rothwell was able to land. The few big strikes, but I was surprised he was able to hold up as long as he did for the entirety of the fight. Yeah, that was a WTF the card. What the F? How did Arlovsky show up and look this darn good? And also about the Alex Hernandez thing. Texas is a big football state. They love themselves some American football. Hernandez was out there doing the back pedal like a NFL caliber cornerback, and maybe they were just loving that. That dude kept his head on a swivel, moving backward the whole time. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And in the defense of the judges, it's not like Trinaldo did a lot to win them over either. I thought he landed more shots and he was controlling the cage, but it's not like he blew Alex Hernandez away. He swelled his eye up pretty good, but it was definitely a robbery, but not the most egregious we've ever seen inside the octagon for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say not a robbery, but definitely a bad decision.
Yeah.
Wherever you draw that line, it was like under being really egregious.
Yeah, there have definitely been more WTF moments than that WTF moment.
Well, for judges' calls, the worst one in history in my mind was Ross Pearson and Diego Sanchez, but that was a long time ago.
I remember that one because one judge had it 30-27 for Sanchez and the other one had it 30-27 for Pearson. Is that the same?
Yeah, and also there was a 30-27 for Hernandez tonight. Two of them? No, which one was it? There was a weird egregious 30-27 that's like, what the
Yeah. That's where they just said like, oh, he's the San Antonio guy. He's going to kill this dude. And then just played Angry Birds on his phone during the fight or something.
Hey, that is a fun game, man.
It is. I can't blame him. So,
pig.
Maybe he was trying to get past that 30th board or whatever it is. That's really tough.
Yeah, there we go. Well, hey, I'm past the time where I told you I would keep you. So you want to give a shout out to other people where they can find you, what you've got going on lately and all that jazz?
Yeah, man. So I've been doing a lot of interviews lately on my show, MMA on the Rocks, which is on all your favorite podcast platforms. I do YouTube, but my mom always told me I have a face for radio, so the audio is definitely the go-to for most people with my show. And then social media, I love engaging with people, finding out what everybody's thinking and drinking during the fight. So it's just at MMA on the Rocks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And then my website, MMAonTheRocks.com. I try to post some weekly articles and craft beer reviews and fun alcohol-related stuff along with, fighter interviews and everything like that. So, I really appreciate you having me on, Brian. I know we've been talking about this for like 2 years probably. And in the meantime, 2 kids have come along collectively and, it kept getting put off, but I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks a lot for being here, Bill. I've actually linked your Twitter, Facebook, the iTunes link, and I'll get your website in the description box down below. So the live viewers and everybody that's listening to the podcast can easily get access to your stuff. Thanks a lot for being here, man.
Cool, man. Cheers, Brian. Talk to you soon.
Take it easy, buddy. All right, viewers. So for the rest of the program, I'm going to be your solo host, and you guys, the live chat, will be my co-host. Let's recap the rest of the action that I didn't cover with Bill during that first part of the show. Let's start with Rob Amon is always here with his butcher block, and I got to get to that, but I think there's something on all of our minds that we got to get to first. Let's talk about Greg Hardy versus Juan Adams. Jimmy Softhands is here. D. Roof. Peterson was the egregious 30-27. That's what I was thinking. Alex Caceres won a unanimous decision over Steven Peterson as the 30-27 for Caceres, because Steven Peterson had Caceres in a very dire straight rear naked choke position for a lot of the first round, but somehow Caceres still got the judge's nod in that fight. Anyway, let's talk about Greg Hardy versus Juan Adams. Officially, Greg Hardy got the finish TKO punches at 45 seconds of round number 1. They came out, at the very start, they both landed a jab. And then, both guys threw wild punches. There was a sequence where they both missed punches, and Juan Adams decided to go in on a single leg takedown. A very poor single leg. Greg Hardy grabbed a whizzer and hipped him down. Juan Adams landed on his hip. Was just held on to Greg Hardy's leg for a long time, just trying to suck it in, maybe, just trying to pull it in tight. And then I don't know what his plan was, but he's just pulling it in tight, and Greg Hardy just right hand hammer fisting him, ground and pound on the side of his head. It also bloodied up Juan Adams. Sorry, I was batting away a fly. His mouth area, he bloodied him up quite a bit. Landed, I think, I put the stats away, didn't I? No, here are the stats. Okay, let's look at these stats. Greg Hardy landed 36, maybe 30 strikes. Oh, well, shoot. Gareth McWaters is here, and he counted how many unanswered shots it was. 31. He says he counted them, and there were 31. Priya Malemian says the stoppage was legit. Juan Adams was out of it. Jimmy Softhand said Juan Adams tried to rope a dope from the ground. Oh, man. Flash Jackson says, I would like to know what was going through Juan Adams' head while Hardy was just sitting there while Hardy was just whapping away at his head. You have to defend yourself. That's an easy TKO call for any referee. Oh, Gareth, you're actually Jack Attack. A long story. Did you get banned by us, my dude? Anyway, yeah, so Juan Adams, after the TKO was called by Big Dan Miragliotta, he got up and was upset. He was protesting the stoppage. He stormed out of the octagon, threw his mouthpiece, and then the camera actually followed him for quite a ways as he went reverse, on the entrance area, and went back to the locker room. He shortly thereafter tweeted, we can just read the tweet if we want. Yeah, let's just read his tweet. And then we'll get to talking about Greg Hardy. So Juan, after his terrible post-fight demeanor, he just chucked his mouthpiece, and it could have hit somebody, I don't know. But he said, I apologize to the UFC and to the fans for the way I acted after the fight. I let my emotions get the better of me, and I acted horribly. To everyone present and watching at home, I truly apologize. I took a few shots to the head and was caught up in the moment. And then his next tweet is, guys, I don't party after a loss. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for losing composure. I'm sorry for not honoring my word. All I can do is prove myself if given another opportunity, whatever is next. But next week, it's back in the gym. So, at least on social media, owning up to his juvenile antics after losing in short order to Greg Hardy. Now, let's talk about Greg Hardy. Do we know anything more about him than we knew coming into this fight? Not really. I mean, that was a pretty good takedown defense, the hipping into the whizzer, but we knew he had big power. We still don't know if his cardio issues has fixed itself, because against Alan Crowder in his UFC debut, when he didn't put Crowder away in 45 seconds, he just kind of crumbled. But what's next for him? Bill and I were actually talking on the previous portion about Walt Harris fighting Blagoy Ivanov. But that's a great fight. It really is a good fight. How about, since it's a similar time frame, both guys spent less than a minute in the octagon tonight. Walt Harris versus Greg Hardy. Let's move Greg Hardy up the ranks fast. And Yeah, let's just move him up. Let's stop with the pussyfooting around with these guys and get Greg Hardy into a top 15 matchup. Thanks, June. I'll get to those right now. Let's read some comments and then we'll get to that. Priya Millennium says the post-fight bravado isn't enough. Got to do something during the fight. Rob Amon says that Adams should be cut. He's not 0-2. He's 1-2. He beat Chris De La Rocha in his UFC debut via TKO in round number 3. But yeah, Jack Attack says the biggest takeaway from the fight is that he has seriously good skills on the mic. Jimmy Softhands, Greg Hardy being pushed by the UFC. He needs to fight someone with good striking. Or wrestling, put him in there with Curtis Razor Blades. Gareth McWaters, how about Ben Rothwell versus Greg Hardy? I think rankings-wise it makes more sense. The Jack Attack said that. Priya Millennium says, I think Arlovsky will lose to Hardy just because of that shot chin. Arlovsky's chin looked pretty decent tonight, but I think that I think that Ben Rothwell looked a little shot tonight. Kyle Mungari says that Walt Harris and Greg Hardy are friends. Dang it. Well, thank you for that information. I appreciate you for being here. You're doing your job. You're worth it to have you here. I don't know what I'm saying. Thanks a lot for the information, though. Okay, so those two aren't going to fight each other. Mike Perry says, well, the takedown defense is all I needed to see. He was a pro NFL player, so he's obviously naturally gifted and a fast learner. But now it's starting to translate in MMA, and he's developing well. And he's actually not that old. I thought he would be older. What is he, 32? So, especially in the heavyweight division, that's pretty darn young. So we'll stick, I don't know what's next for Greg Hardy, but let's move him into, Tai Tuivasa would be a good one. Derek Lewis would be a good one. I like the idea of Blagoy Ivanov versus Walt Harris, though. Oh, thanks, Kyle. Cool. 20. No, he's not. Meds, J says that. Did I say Walt Harris? Greg Hardy is 30. Wow. He turns 31 in 8 days. Yeah, he's a lot younger than I thought he was. Man, he might have a decent future. A lot of options, though, for Greg Hardy. He showed... One of the things that I thought about this fight, when you watch their walkouts, Juan Adams looked like super upset, super mad, like he had a lot of tension in his heart and in his mind, and I felt that he was going to do something dumb, and holding on to that single leg attempt for too long was not the brightest idea. Either that, or I thought maybe he would get past like the first flurry and like get himself gassed out a little bit, have that adrenaline dump. And Greg Hardy went out there calm, cool, collected. Regardless of what you think about his outside of the cage problems, his past, he did show decent takedown defense tonight, and he looked calm and composed in the octagon. He's probably played football in front of a bigger audience, but there you kind of have a mask on. The helmet and everything hides you a little bit. But yeah, he was composed. So there's a lot of options for Greg Hardy, but I would like to move him into the top 15. Let's get him a ranked opponent. Jack Attack says, I bet they make Greg Hardy versus Sergey Spivak, who looked like a total can against Walt Harris. Rob says Hardy versus Kane might be interesting. Holy moly. Could you imagine if Greg Hardy beat Cain Velasquez? Huh. Anyway, a lot of options there. Let's go over our post-fight bonuses for this card. Remember that we're not actually giving anybody any money at all, so you can give out 5 post-fight bonuses if you'd like. So 250,000 imaginary dollars if you'd like. If not, you can give out as little as you'd like as well. Whatever you want to do, but maximum is 5, 250. Rob says no bonuses. Priya Millennium says that Cain Velasquez is not coming back. He's a pro wrestler now. But the real post-fight bonuses via June Williams, our moderator. Thank you so much for being here, June. Everybody say thank you to June. Performance of the night bonuses went to Dan the Hangman Hooker and Walt Harris. Each got $50K. And fight of the night went to Mario Bautista versus Jin Soo Sun. What's up, T-Boo Jit? Jack Attack says Roxanne Modafferi gets every penny for walking out to face the pain. Let's use the real post-fight bonuses to talk about Dan the Hangman Hooker knocking out James Vick. So these guys exchanged low kicks early. They exchanged jabs. It was mostly Dan Hooker who was walking forward. But the finish happened. James Vick was looking to counter with a hook, his own left hook. Kind of lean back and hit him with the hook. Dan Hooker threw a jab that wasn't, or not a jab, a cross to the body, but he didn't throw it meaning to actually get there. He threw it short, tried to, I don't know if he's getting the rotation, and then he came with the left hook upstairs. So he threw the right short, left hook upstairs. Same kind of knockout we've seen happen for James Vick a number of times. The tall man kind of defense, leaning back away, gets caught with the hook, and he goes down. And it was a left-right-left combo on the canvas, just bouncing Vick's head off the canvas. That sealed the deal for Dan Hooker. Amazing performance. It only took him 2 minutes and 33 seconds over, I think Vick might be ranked higher than he. Let's look at the lightweight ranking. So lightweight, James Vick was 15, Dan Hooker not ranked. Then in the post-fight interview, Dan Hooker said that he needs to be on the UFC 243 card. I believe it's happening in New Zealand. It's happening in Australia. We don't know the venue, but we know the main event is Robert Bobby Knuckles, the Reaper Whitaker versus Israel, the Last Stylebender Adesanya. The reason why Hooker wants to be on that card is his best friend is Israel Adesanya. They do a podcast together sometimes. They're broing it up all the time on some of the social medias. I like it. Let's get him on that card, and let's get him against Alexander the Great, the decent Hernandez, who got a win in the fight previous to that. We already mentioned it wasn't the most clear-cut decision in the world, but he did get a unanimous decision over Francisco Masaranduba Trinaldo. The timing of it makes sense. I think it'd be a good fight, contested very well. And I would like Dan Hooker to fight Alexander Hernandez on the main card portion of UFC 243. What do you guys think about that? Let's see. What are your post-fight bonuses? I'm trying to read them here. Priya Millennium says, performance of the nights go to Hooker, Harris, and Hardy. Fight of the night goes to Arlovsky versus Rothwell. I like it. Very cool. Platinum Mike Perry says, Hooker, Hardy, and Harris for the performance bonuses, and Edwards versus RDA for fight of the night. Yes. Whoop, chat skipped on me. Sorry, hold on. Carrie Giant Squid Lip. What a name. Says the performance of the night for Alexander Hernandez. And then Kyle Mongari shoots him down. I agree with Kyle. And Meds Kama J says Hernandez lost that fight. I agree. I did score it for Francisco Trinaldo, but nonetheless, he got the official win. Next up for him, Dan the Hangman Hooker. Jack Attack says, I truly think Arlovsky and Rothwell deserve fight of the night. They've been doing it so long, and Rothwell took ungodly punishment. Oh, okay, Carrie. Carrie was trolling about Hernandez getting the post-fight bonus. My post-fight bonuses, I'm going to give out 4. I'd give the main event fight of the night, and I'd give a post-fight bonus to Walt Harris and Dan the Hangman Hooker. And one of the reasons is Mario Bautista versus Jin Soo Sun. I saw on Twitter it was an amazing fight. I didn't really watch the fight. I was doing trying to help with my son, trying to keep my wife as comfortable as possible for as long as possible because she's kind of sick and my son has not been sleeping well. He's been really grumpy at nighttime. Anywho, I didn't watch the fight live. I should go back and watch it now, but I know the result. I should still watch it, but that's why I can't give it a performance or the fight of the night bonus. I didn't watch it live. I'm sorry. Priya Millennium says Hernandez should be out of the top 15 just because of this performance, and Trinaldo is actually good. I thought he won tonight. Is there anything else that we need to talk about on this night of fights? Not really. Oh, yeah. A lot of you talking about James Vick. Let's talk about that. Kyle Mongari says Vick needs to tuck his chin and keep his hands up. Rob Amon says Vick needs to go to welterweight. Oh, yeah, we need to do Rob's chopping block. So, Rob, put the chopping block in the chat again if you can. Oh, there it is. He already did it. Way ahead of me. So, James Vick could possibly... Dang it. Windows. James Vick could possibly be on the chopping block, but I don't think he will be. Here's why he could be, though. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He lost via knockout in the first round of the main event of UFC Lincoln on August 25th, 2018. Then he lost a decision against Paul Felder, where he actually collapsed Paul Felder's lung. Just a little fun fact there. And then he got knocked out tonight. One reason why I don't think he'll be cut or anything like that is he was on a pretty good tear before. He was on a 4-fight winning streak before losing to James Vick, or before losing to Justin Gaethje, excuse me. Another reason, excuse me, he's a huge guy. I mean, I know a lot of the live chats have said that he needs to go to welterweight. I think he does need to go to welterweight. He's 6'3". He looks very emaciated. He looks very sunk in, even on fight day, at 155 pounds. And yeah, I think he should go to welterweight. June reminded me, you guys need to go over your WTFs of the card. We will do that after Rob's butcher block. So Rob says that we should cut Juan Adams, Ben Rothwell, Steven Peterson, and Sam Alvey. I agree. I kind of agree on Juan Adams. I don't know. That was just a very, very poor performance tonight. It was not very good. He is 1-2 in the UFC, though. The UFC is light on heavyweight talents. Maybe he will stay. He also is really fun to follow on Twitter. He's obviously a very introspective human being by what he said on Twitter after his post-fight antics tonight. Maybe we keep him around. As far as Ben Rothwell goes, I don't know if we cut him or if he could retire. He is 37. He's had 48 mixed martial arts contests. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, all via decision. Andrei Arlovsky, Blagoy Ivanov, Junior Dos Santos. He might want to consider retirement, or maybe he could go fight Matt Mitrione again. Or not Matt Mitrione. He'd have to fight Ryan Bader over there in Bellator. But either way, I think perhaps Ben Rothwell will no longer be in the UFC. And then we got Steven Peterson, who lost via unanimous decision to Alex Caceres. Did not do a very good job of listening to his corner during this fight. He is now 1-3 in the UFC. All of his fights have gone to the judges. I think that'd be fine. You know. And Sam Alvey. Smiling Sam Alvey, one of the least fun gimmicks in mixed martial arts, is now on a 3-fight losing streak. He got TKO'd by Antonio Rogerio, Little Nog Nogueira in September of 18. Then he got TKO'd by Jimmy Crute in February of this year. And now this unanimous decision loss to Klitzin Abreu. Very boring fight. Not very fun at all, really. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree? Tell me in the comment section down below if you're not watching live. Tell me in the live chat if you're watching live. Do you agree with Rob's roster cuts? BJJ sub-artist says Smiling Sam will wait all 3 rounds to fire that perfect counter. And now let's go over your WTF of the card. Wait, you kind of did. A lot of people said Alex Hernandez getting that decision. Let's do the WTF of the card as this event. I want to talk about this event tying the record for the most decisions on a single card in UFC history. There are now 6 with that record. The first was UFC 169, Barao versus Faber 2 on February 1st of 2014. Then we had UFC Fight Night 36, Machida versus Musasi on February 15th of 2014. Excuse me, after that, February 27th of 2016, main event, Silva versus Michael the Count Bisping, where Michael got knocked out and then still won a decision. After that, UFC Fight Night 121, November of 17. The headliner was Fabricio Cavallo Verdum versus Marcin Tybura. And then the latest one was Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Shogun Hua, UFC Fight Night 134, July 22nd of 2018, almost to the day. 1 year later, this one happens, and 10 fights go to a decision. The first 9 all went to the judges, and then the main event also went to the judges. That is my WTF of the card. It was a real slog, and I don't understand why they made the main card be broadcast or started a half hour late. Like, let's move them along. We still had to watch commercials between the fights, you know, like hyping up Daniel Cormier's, like in the mind of Daniel Cormier talking about Conor McGregor. We still had to go to the booth and talk about stuff. What the F? It's one of the longest cards in the history of time. Carrie the Giant Squid Lip said, okay, how about this? I lost like 8 unders in a row. Never would have bet on half of them, but I thought one had to be coming. Showing the Colby promo too, says BJJ sub artist. Huh. Meds, J says Big Dan obviously being disgusted by Greg Hardy is my WTF. I didn't notice that, but that is rather funny. Christopher Nichols, it's working. You're here. Priya Millennium says that he agrees with the roster cuts. BJJ sub artist says Hernandez getting the win, definitely the WTF of the card. Jack Attack, I would keep Adams to fight Sergey Spivak. Peterson versus Susan, Alvey versus Paul Craig, and Ben Rothwell versus Greg Hardy. All right. Priya Millennium asks about RDA's future. Meds, J says RDA is far from done. One other person asked about the future of Rafael dos Anjos. So Rafael dos Anjos, he's the former lightweight champion. He's now 1-3 in his last 4, but his losses are to the tippity top of the division above where he used to reign. So Leon Edwards tonight, Marty Usman before that, Colby Covington before that. Before that, he had a 3-fight winning streak. I think he's far from done. Even though he's had 41 professional bouts, I still like to watch him in there competing. Maybe he's done being a headliner. But in the welterweight division, he has a win over Neil Magny. Whoa. How about Vicente Luque versus Rafael dos Anjos? That'd be fun, right? Has that fight happened? Probably not. Vicente Luque versus Rafael dos Anjos, and I would say that dos Anjos is far from done. Jason Correa says that RDA has all the skills. He's just too small for 170 pounds. Rob Amon says that RDA is a good gatekeeper. Flash Jackson says that the prelims being on ESPN probably detoured the casual fans away from seriously watching because of all the fights going to a decision. Also, it is, well, we've been doing this show for 50 minutes now, but so almost an hour. Fights got over like 11, started at 5. 6 hours of fights, and most of them went to the judges. That is a long time for a casual viewer to be interested in something they're, a casual viewer of. Meds J says that RDA doesn't want to cut to 155 anymore, which I can understand. He'll never be champ at 170. It's all about cashing checks from here on out. Priya Millennium says that he wants RDA to take on some low-level fights and then build up again. You don't like my idea about Vicente Luque? I don't know. I like it. Iconic Tragic says Ngannou should fight Walt Harris and Hardy should fight Derek the Black Beast Lewis. No problem, Christopher Nichols. Sorry I didn't get to all of... Hey, Nasty Paul. This is a post-fight show. My name's Flyin Brian J. This video is brought to you by SB Nation MMA, which includes BloodyElbow.com and MMAmania.com, where I recap all of the action using the live chat as my co-host. Priam thinks that Luque hits too hard. He does hit hard, but Rafael dos Anjos is very, very, very durable. I think it's an interesting bout. I'm sticking to my guns. I think that we've probably covered everything that we need to cover for tonight. June has a lot of work that she needs to get done elsewhere beyond this post-fight show. She's told me she's going to be working until like 3 in the morning. So 3 hours from now, she's still going to be working. I don't want to keep her up anymore. So let's get out of here for this week. My post-fight rating for this card would be a 3 out of 10. Maybe a 4 out of 10. Let's give it a 4 out of 10. I don't want to be that negative. What I want you guys to do is tell me in the comment section, not in the live chat. Once this video turns into where there's a comment section, tell me what post-fight rating you would give this event on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm sticking to my guns with a 4. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'll be back next week for a live play-by-play result stream for the UFC 240 main card, which is headlined by the featherweight champion Max Blessed Holloway defending that belt against Frankie the Answer Edgar. The co-main event features Chris Cyborg Justino versus Felicia Spencer. And then I will be doing a post-fight show. As of right now, my guest co-host next week for the post-fight show will be Laura Sanko. Please give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.